Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, Saturday, June 6, 2020, in 4 days' time, this government begins its last year in office. Mr. Speaker, we are here to debate another loan. This government has come here again for more debt at the time that they are approaching their 5th year in office without reprioritizing any of the activities as a result of what has happened to us as a result of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, this debate on the $7.945 million US dollars from the CDB to finance the Millennium Highway and West Coast reconstruction project is happening at a very interesting time. So as we approach Saturday, June 6, 2020, Mr. Speaker, I wish to take this opportunity to thank the 37,000+ people who voted for the St. Lucia Labour Party. And as chairman of the Labour Party, I wish to say to them, Mr. Speaker, that we are thankful for their support. And all of us are realizing that they made the right decision. And more, Mr. Speaker, as we approach this time, we are realizing that we are heading for another date with destiny. Mr. Speaker, while the member for Grosile was on his feet, and he spoke about what he thought the opposition should be doing, he reminded me, Mr. Speaker, of the other members of the government. He seemed to be suggesting, Mr. Speaker, that since we are in opposition, we should not speak, we should not challenge the government, that we should simply come together, respect the fact that the government has won, and therefore, the impression that I get from the member for Grosile is that we should just stay in our corner. I want to assure, Mr. Speaker, all those who support the Labour Party and the other dispossessed and broken St. Lucians, those who have been broken by this government, that we will not cower. I want to assure the member for Grosile and St. Lucia that this opposition will not cower, and he can get upset as much as he wants, as he did a while ago. We are not going to cower. Mr. Speaker, this motion to borrow $21,213,150 EC dollars is very important, because I listened to members opposite trying the same thing again, trying to say that we don't want the road to be constructed. We are against development. We don't want it to happen. What we are simply saying, Mr. Speaker, is this. And the member for Grosile and the member for Babuno pointed to these things. Here is what we are saying. This is not a project where the government doesn't have money. This government has $96.382 million secured for this project. I repeat, $96.382 million. What this government is coming to do is to seek additional monies, $21,213,150. Additionally, it's called counterpart funding, whatever you want to call it, Mr. Speaker. Additional financing. And the point we are making is this. If we are in a disaster, COVID-19 has struck us. Here is another example which demonstrates, Mr. Speaker, that this government is not about adjusting as a result of COVID-19. How much of this road can $96.382 million do? And if you have 96.382 million EC dollars, why is it? Why can there be adjustments in this time of the COVID-19 crisis? Mr. Speaker, based on what I've heard so far, today seemed to be the day of bravado by the government side. Boastfulness, a kind of boastful emptiness in relation to this motion. They are here to approve $21 million, so everybody gets up. It's like, Mr. Speaker, when you are at the feeding trough. Lani bagay pou manger, tout moun, vini, tout. In my view, Mr. Speaker, what is causing this is simple. When they are there to speak about loans like this for contracts for the FFF, in my view, they are fighting to speak. Even the member for Babuno in his contribution, he has found his courage to speak very early, not like him. But last week, Mr. Speaker, when the state of emergency was being imposed on the people of St. Lucia, not a single one of them stood up to defend the people. Not a single one. Last week, they didn't stand up. They didn't fight to speak. Their silence was deafening, Mr. Speaker. When it was the state of emergency which was imposed on the people of St. Lucia, they said nothing. But to hear them today, because it's $21 million and projects, they are jumping up. But not one of them stood up, outside of what the Prime Minister did, to defend their own government, not even to defend the decision to impose a state of emergency on the people of St. Lucia. Not today. Today is at the feeding trough. But, Mr. Speaker, this motion comes at a time when the officials are going through additional stresses because of this COVID-19. This $21 million that we are seeking today in additional funding, and I wish to repeat, Mr. Speaker, it is not like this government does not have money to construct the project or to do the project. In a situation where we have COVID-19, it is not like this government can come and say that they cannot do anything, that we are against the entire project. They have $96.382 million secured. $96 million. But it's not enough. There can be no adjustments. While there can be no adjustments, the hotel workers, over 15,000 hotel workers, are not sure of their future. While this government has $96 million already for the project, they come back here for an additional $21 million, and the taxi drivers have not been guaranteed assistance. The bus drivers have not been guaranteed any organized assistance. The cruise ship workers who have returned, and those who may return, have not been guaranteed any assistance by this government. But no adjustments can be made. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Speaker, sir, I did not hear the Prime Minister mention COVID-19 at all in his introduction. I heard him mention tourism, that the West Coast Road is the mainstay, the West Coast is the mainstay of our tourism industry, or our tourism plant, and so on. He spoke to the effects of Hurricane Thomas. He wants to take advantage of the fact that school is closed. But an additional $21 million, and I heard the member for Babuno when he said that they came to the House last time to speak about all these other things. But thousands of St. Lucians are yet to hear the ching-ching that they promised them in their pockets. And we are in a situation, Mr. Speaker, where we are supposed to adjust as a result of COVID-19. So I want the people of St. Lucia to know que gouvernement ni l'argent là pour ça. Presque $100 millions l'argent cette ici qui gouvernement ni. C'est pas ça le gouvernement pas ni pièce l'argent pour faire projet. Peut-être si on fait un autre logement, peut-être il n'y a pas qu'à faire tout projet parce que ça nous a dit, nous avons fait COVID-19 et le gouvernement tout partout au lieu de la terre a changé bagaille. Si on est pour faire 10 projets, il y a fait 7 parce que la situation est tellement mauvaise. Mais le gouvernement ça là pas qu'à faire à quoi dit l'année en COVID-19. Seul là qui a fait à quoi dit l'année en COVID-19, c'est là où vous voulez mettre state of emergency en légende cette ici. C'est là ça là il faut, il a fait tout bagaille state of emergency. Mais ça m'a dit à M. Speaker, gouvernement c'est ça vient manger projet pour ne pas venir prêter en l'autre 21 millions de dollars cette ici. Comme ça c'est pas un bagaille côté yo pas ni l'argent. The member for Castres East, Mr. Speaker, has spoken about the history of this project and the habit of this government to stop projects, to change projects and stop projects, and come back 4 years after to pretend that this is a new project. The repair to the Millennium Highway was a project which was already in train. Leader opposition, membre parlement Castres East, dit nous, et que nous savons, nous sommes tous bagages qui, officiers de Zadesson, avec gardé projet pour ranger Highway Millennium là. Mais le gouvernement ça a double projet. Ils ont changé projet. Avec après 4 années après, ils ont viré pour demander pour plus l'argent. Eh bien, si nous avons COVID-19, pour qu'ils n'ont pas servi presque 100 millions de dollars et qu'ils viennent arranger le projet, faire ça, ça fait, avec l'autre, pas un projet, peut-être qu'ils vont faire un autre. Mais ce n'est pas ça qu'ils veulent faire. Comme ça, en l'idée, M. Speaker, il n'y a pas ni pièce, changement qu'a fait, laisser COVID-19, à part du state of emergency, qui voulait chaîne en les gens pays Saint-Lucie. The leader of the opposition has asked the question, what is the total cost of the project? Will we need additional funds, even after the $21.213 million, Mr. Speaker? How is the tendering process being organized? Is there a new board? And they have not answered the question. I'm hoping that the member of parliament for Castres North, who I'm told, based on what the Prime Minister said, has responsibility for this project, it's in his ministry. I'm hoping the member of parliament for Castres North can explain the whole tendering process, the internal arrangements, because after all, it is the taxpayers of St. Lucia who will be paying for this. And they may say, Mr. Speaker, that this does not make sense. Explain to the people of St. Lucia, some of whom who own cars, who have paid over 12,000 EC dollars in gas taxes since the taxes have been collected, the $1.50 in gas per gallon. The minivan, the people who own the minivans, who have paid over $15,000 in gas taxes. The fishers, based on calculations that we did with the fishers, the minivan owners and the car owners, who have paid over $26,000 in gas taxes, those fishers who are pelagic fishers, $1.50 per gallon. What do we say to them, Mr. Speaker, when this government started by saying that we are going to impose $1.50 in gas tax for roads, and $1.50 per gallon would go to the construction and rehabilitation of roads in St. Lucia. But 4 days before the 5 years begin, they come to Parliament to ask for an additional $21 million in loans to build roads. So 150 à partir assez. Regardez encore, Mr. Speaker, le gouvernement vini yo dit yo kay mette un taxe en les gallons, chaque gallon gaz. Yo kay mette un taxe en les chaque gallon gaz. Excédé pour manger chimé, excédé pour faire chimé. You can make a tax. This government never came to Parliament to give us a list of roads which the $1.50 per gallon would repair or would rebuild. Had they come to Parliament and put a list of roads and this Millennium Highway was not part of it, then I can say, okay, they need more money for this one because the 150 is not in the list of roads. They did not come to Parliament. They said it was to fix roads and to reconstruct roads and to build roads. But today, we are here seeking $21 million to fix roads. Whether it's the Millennium Highway, Millennium to Soufre, c'est chimé yoye. Parce que ou dit, ou ka mette $1.50 en le gaz pour manger chimé. Mais aujourd'hui, ou besoin $21 millions encore pour manger chimé toujours. They allocated another $3.35 million out of the IMF money, the rapid credit facility from the IMF, to that same project. Mr. Speaker. So 30 million pounds, which is about 96.32 million EC dollars. Then they took another 3 million from the IMF, and now they're coming here for $21,213,150. Mr. Speaker, it's very simple. This government is not responding to the challenges of the country as if we were in a COVID-19 situation. This government is not doing so. What they are doing is behaving as if everything is the same way. But one set of people can suffer because everything is not the same way. So the burden is on the workers of this country. The burden is on the fishers of this country. Because if we are in an emergency, obviously, you have to assist the sectors of the economy that are under stress. The burden is on who should be getting public assistance. They stay months without the money. And these people were getting 300, now it's 200. That's where the burden is. You don't hear ministers of government talking about that. The burden is on the taxi drivers. The burden is on the minibus drivers who are to carry 7 people in the buses. That's where the burden of the COVID-19 is. The COVID-19 disaster and the economic problems that it has caused. That is where the burden is, Mr. Speaker. So this government is bolstering it's going full steam ahead to bolster all of its arrangements, all of its friends and all of them in these arrangements, Mr. Speaker, while the other sectors of the economy are reeling under the burden of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, when the member for Babuno and Minister for Agriculture spoke, he spoke about agriculture, how they are helping agriculture, and so on. And I'm speaking here to the $21 million of additional financing that this government has come for, when they have 96 million EC dollars that they can use. And the member for Babuno speaks about agriculture, they're going to help banana farmers and so on. When I tell you, Mr. Speaker, that this government is insensitive, they are very insensitive. And the member for Grozile repeated a lot of what the Prime Minister, the kind of themes that the Prime Minister has. You have lost your right to speak. In other words, sit down there and listen to your masters, that kind of thing, you know. Just because the government won, just work with them. The member for Babuno should tell us, Mr. Speaker, that while he's here seeking 21 million EC dollars in additional funding, that the banana farmers today, we were supposed to have banana shipments today, Mr. Speaker. This is not something I'm talking about tomorrow, you know. Today, week 23, we were supposed to have banana shipments today. Up to now, it's 5 to 3 on the 2nd of June. Up to now, they are not certain if there will be a shipment, Mr. Speaker. Certainly not to France. The regular shipment, I'm not talking about the bogus Bananas to France. Of course I'm coming there. And you would think that this government treats those things as an emergency. The hundreds of banana farmers don't know if they are going to ship bananas today. Bananas should have been shipped today. Today. And we are here for $21 million in additional funds. The banana farmers have not been paid from week 17, 18, 19, week 20, week 21, week 22, Mr. Speaker. Yeah. And there is nothing there, as if that is part of the, it's like that's part of the state of emergency. It's like that's part of the state of emergency. There's a state of emergency in the banana industry, Mr. Speaker. And we are here seeking $21 million, $21 million in additional funds when we could have adjusted, Mr. Speaker. And it's their choice not to adjust. If you look at Jamaica, Mr. Speaker, and if you look at the Capital Works program, bam, COVID-19, you see adjustments. Major adjustments, Mr. Speaker. And you read every day. I read the Jamaican newspapers all the time, and you look at it. The government has decided, you know what? We need major adjustments because this COVID-19 thing the COVID-19 will place our people in jeopardy. And all we are asking is this. I want the government to give us a reason. What? One, two. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, basically, I'm reiterating that this is an example to show that COVID-19 is not a major emergency for this government in terms of their policies as they see. We have said before, the medical people have done what they had to do, and they continue to do what they have to do. But this government is going on its merry way because in 4 days' time, in my view, a particular date is coming. And no matter how they jump high or jump low, they're on their 5th year. 5 years. 5 years coming. So, Mr. Speaker, the member for Babuno spoke about their fast government. They do things fast or something like that.
Yeah, like that.
They do things fast. We are fast government. We are fast government. The same member for Babuno, you know, Mr. Speaker, who chastised me and said all kinds of things about he have contract at marketing board as a minister, you know. Contract at marketing when I take away his contract. But he's doing things fast. I want the member for Babuno, through you, Mr. Speaker, to say something about today. This is not about tomorrow, you know, or yesterday, today. Today, the banana farmers don't know they're shipping their bananas. So you know what will happen, Mr. Speaker? The $19 million or the $21 million that the banana farmers and all of the partners injected into this economy last year, if today, on June 6th, they're not sure if they're shipping bananas, that's a crisis in itself. A major crisis. And the member for Babuno, as I've said before, must apologize to the farmers of St. Lucia. They are not paying attention, Mr. Speaker, to these sectors. They're not paying attention. And they come here for $21 million EC. What about the farmers from not only my constituency, Bellevue, Grace, especially Grace? What about them? What about them, Mr. Speaker? And while he comes here for $21 million EC in additional funds, he says to them, we are going to fix Windfresh. So before, the problem was production. These labor people don't know about bananas, they don't know about agriculture. But he comes here to get million $21 million EC from the CDB, 7-point-something million US in the motion. And at the same time, the very day when they come for $21 million, the banana farmers don't know if they're shipping. Now, Now, that requires pause. One of the main subsectors of our economy, Mr. Speaker. No statement. So the member for Baboon are expecting to say, we are coming for 21 million EC, but I know today the farmers may not ship, and they have not had money for so many weeks. That's the reality that we are in, Mr. Speaker. That is what has happened with this government. So when they come here for $21 million, that is what has happened. Either a problem with bags to pack fruits, all kinds of things in our major banana sector. Mr. Speaker, moi vle di ki 18 mois après projet ça a été commencé. 18 mois après, you fait a go ceremony. Big ceremony, Mr. Speaker. Member for Castries North spoke. It's in the media, all the records are there. The Prime Minister, big speech. 18 months after, Mr. Speaker, 18 months after. It's now been said again that if we get $21 million, everything will be okay, we're going to start. But this is not the first time, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is not the first time that we've spoken about loans and borrowing and debt, and we connect it to major sword-turning ceremonies. This is not the first time. You remember the 600-something million which may be spent at the airport, Mr. Speaker, lots of sword-turning ceremony and big ceremony. It's not the first time. So, beginning of the fifth year, it's the character that's showing, Mr. Speaker. And the member for Gozile speaks about unemployment. The member for Soufre, member for Chosa, they love to talk about unemployment, as if they're the only ones who came in a cycle where things were being done to reduce unemployment. In 2006, Mr. Speaker, we left unemployment at 13%. Yeah. By 2011, it had gone up to 25%. Yeah. And today is not the day for us to talk about, Mr. Speaker, the whole performance of governments. We're going to talk about that. There is time to talk about that. About our best year was our worst year was your best year. That's a lot of fallacy. The figures are there, but we'll talk about that. That will come. Yeah, that will come. That will come. All kinds of things about the economy. They believe that they are skilled, Mr. Speaker, in breaking the legs of things that ought to be factual based on figures and so on. But we are going to continue, Mr. Speaker, in the face of what the member for Grozile has said today. We are going to continue to put the truth out every single time, day in, day out. So, Mr. Speaker, this Millennium Highway and West Coast Roads upgrading project is one that demonstrates, Mr. Speaker, that this government is simply about continuing on its merry way. Continuing on its merry way of ensuring that certain kind of projects happen so that, Mr. Speaker, the feeding trough can be open wide. The feeding trough can be open wide. This is what's going on here, Mr. Speaker. This is not about, oh, they love the tourists who are coming to Soufre and the people who are traveling on the roads, that it's going to benefit them and so on. The very taxi drivers who are using the roads and the minibus drivers, they have not treated them well after COVID-19. The very taxi drivers and minibus drivers who today have to feed their families, not tomorrow, who today have to feed their families, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, you have minibus drivers complaining and saying that this government has not given them the attention that they deserve. And this government comes here and says that the $21 million, we should approve it because this project is a must-do project. I said to you, Mr. Speaker, that the must-do projects are the projects that they oppose. And they say it all the time. The member for Grozile, and it's amazing, you know, Mr. Speaker. One time the member for Babuno, last debate, he says he's not into food security, he's into production. They're not concerned about food security. The records are there.
Mr.
In the
Speaker,
last debate.
I stand at a point of order. The honourable member has misled the House on countless occasions. I just want to draw a reference, Mr. Speaker, on something he said pertaining to the unemployment rate, and hope that by producing the facts that he will withdraw the statement. He quoted the unemployment rate, which he mentioned that was somewhere, I think he said it was in the teens, 13%, but then he said in 2011 it was 25%. Mr. Speaker, I have here a social economic review, and on table 32 of page 121, the unemployment rate in 2011 was 21.2%. So I think the member would need to amend the assertion suggesting that the unemployment rate in 2011 was 25%.
What was it in 2006?
Honorable member,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I don't have the economic and social review with me.
Let's say 21%, 21.2%, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, is he withdrawing the statement?
But can he say what it was in 2006? Because he's only quoting one part.
It doesn't go as far back.
Honorable member, I will get a copy of the economic review. I'm not sure. What year you have?
Yeah, I'm reading. This is the latest one for 2019.
Okay, honorable member is indicating that the figure you quoted of 14% was not so as accurate.
So it doesn't go as far back as 2006.
But
so
we could always verify that.
In 2011,
so
the member is extremely wrong.
Okay, honorable member. Okay, honorable member. We'll verify that, but if you're wrong, we will so accept
Yes,
that.
certainly. So let's say, if he says 21.2%, I also want him to quote what it was in 2006. So, Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying to you is this. The members opposite have shown very clearly that COVID-19 does not factor into the decisions when it comes to those major issues. They have not factored in COVID-19 in terms of making adjustments. Here is an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, that they will have to demonstrate that in this opportunity, with this opportunity, there was no way that they could leave out the $21 million. Because, as I said before, they have close to $100 million. If you take the 96.3 something million and you add the 3 point some million that they took from the IMF, from the Rapid Credit Facility, that's close to $100 million. So, Mr. Speaker, you only have $100 million pour faire rangement les chimères ça là. Et que nous y a désastre COVID-19, yo vié. Et qu'a dit, Mr. Speaker, yo veut plus l'argent, plus dette, plus loan. En les têtes cette lycée, là nous allons aller en désastre, à désastre. Et je me dis avant, Mr. Speaker, qui, mon parlement, nous l'a parlé, il dit, il y a des avenirs ici avant de parler à l'assistance pour agricole. Mais ça me dit, Mr. Speaker, aujourd'hui même, le deuxième juin, l'année ça, aujourd'hui, quand nous parlons là, nous avons une crisis, nous avons un désastre en figue, un gros désastre en figue. Comment on parle là avec là où moi pour acide Mr. Speaker, moi acide Mr. Speaker, moi check fondement encore. Quand nous parler ici à Bouizan, femme figue pas si figue yo kay aller. Femme figue pas si yo kay vendre figue jodi a. Et depuis semaine 16, femme figue pourquoi joindre l'argent bay figue yo. Magawe mam parlement babouno ka jump up ek parler. Talè la jump up parler parce que contract bagay $21 million. So Mr. Speaker, avant moi finir moi kay di gouvernement parti obligé pour un lot 21 millions de dollars. Le gouvernement a poché 100 millions de dollars pour faire projet ça là. Et quand tant Covid, communication, toi, cassement ça là, le gouvernement a servi en 100 millions, en 100 millions, you know, Mr. Speaker, en 100 millions de dollars l'argent pour un jeune Millennium Highway, la gagne travail, mais la partie qui plus dette ça là, 21 millions de dollars. C'est ça nous qu'a dit. C'est ça nous qu'a dit. Yo ka fait quoi dit la partie de pièce, oh, nous briser l'argent, yo ni l'argent. Parce que l'argent ça a été négocié par Dr. Kenny Anthony, non, en mon parlement.
Pas ça, pas ça.
Mon parlement vient for South.
Pas ça. Ça à l'Angleterre.
Mon parlement vient for South. Avec premier ministre là qui était l'Angleterre avant. C'est pas l'argent yo haché. Ça c'est l'argent qui était là. So ça nous a dit à M. Speaker. Yo demandé l'argent pour gaz. $1, puis passer $1, 50 sous pour gaz. Péché qui a payé ça. Tout le monde a payé ça parce que yo dit yo ka servi pour manger chimé. Et qu'à présent, yo ka viré pour 21 millions de dollars pour mettre en l'air 100 millions de dollars aux années. C'est ça nous a dit à M. Speaker. Avec qualité c'est l'argent ça yo ka prêté. Moi ka dit M. Speaker, they will come back again. They will come back again for more money on the backs of St. Lucians because, Mr. Speaker, a particular date is coming. And we stand ready, Mr. Speaker. We are ready despite what the member for Barbudo Gozile said. And despite what the Prime Minister says all the time that we have lost our right to speak. We have gained our right to speak in this parliament. We are going to continue to represent the people of St. Lucia. And they are now approaching their 5th year, Mr. Speaker. I encourage the people of St. Lucia who have been down-pressed and called all sorts of names. And people are suggesting that we go back to days of slavery, Mr. Speaker, under colonialism. I call on all of them to be ready to ensure that when the time comes, we cause massive amounts of people to vote this government out. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.